So on the previous video for this Ford 555, we were in the process of repairing the power steering system. We replaced the seals on the steering cylinders themselves, and then we also need to locate a leak and replace the seal on the steering motor itself. And all was going pretty well until the end, when I went to put this particular piece in, and disaster struck. We ended up breaking it. Today, we're gonna try to make that right. We've got the new $272 commutator ring. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly or not. And we're gonna try to get this finished up without breaking it this time. We ended up getting this from Messick's. I ordered it that Friday afternoon. It came in Monday around 1 o'clock, which was pretty surprising. I felt like that was pretty quick. So keep in mind this washer we're talking about. See how that side is dished out just enough? See how that side is flush? If we were to put that flush side on there, we're left with that gap right there. See that? If we flip it over to the side that's dished out, we're going to sit perfectly flush on that machine's surface, aside from these openings that are machined in there. So based on the pictures from the book, based on my understanding of how this works, and based on the video footage, which I don't have a great shot of putting or taking this off, I am 99% sure that's the direction it goes. That side there, this side against the washer. Because if we did that, and then you press down on it, try to keep my eyes from getting too spicy. This piece there goes into the slotted part. The washer is on, and hopefully that pin is long enough. Yeah, so I can feel that I'm in the hole. What if we just leave it like this for the rest of our lives, you know? It'll never be finished, but it'll never be broken either. So, torque sequence is basically a star, just like you do with lug nuts, just like you do with any circular bolt pattern typically. Okay, if it's gonna break, it's probably gonna break now. I think we're all right though. Let's put it on the tractor. And let's see what happens. And let's talk about the future of the backhoe. I don't know if I'm ready for that conversation, but I mean, we could talk about it. I bet it's not what you expected. So orientation matters. Obviously, we got to get hydraulic lines on the correct side. Sorry about the goose over here. She's a squeaky girl. Let's see if we can get this fed up in. Let's see, torque spec on this was so those are all snugged up. The other thing I want to look at right quick, see, so we've got a lot going on wiring wise. The dust doesn't necessarily look right. Also, I don't know what this does right here. See, haven't a clue. Couldn't tell you. Lights are down here, all right, right there. And maybe that's the windshield wipers. Hold on. Oh, no, that's the lights. We got emergency flashers right here. Yeah, turn signals. Comes in super handy. Wiper controls are up here. Believe it or not, they actually work. All of this, well, not the AC, but there's a switch inside of here I got to hook up someday. The blower motor works though, so we could have heat this winter. Here's the thing. We've got a battery charging issue. Yeah, we got a good battery. We got a good alternator. We got a good voltage regulator. Somewhere in between here. Well, let's just. You guys want to look at some of what's going on down here too? Yeah, it's pretty wild. Somewhere in here, I'm guessing, is the problem where the alternator won't communicate with the voltage regulator to tell the alternator to charge the battery. Now, the simple solution would be to put a one-wire GM alternator. But I don't want to give up. You know, the point I'm trying to make is we're about to do a little bit of wiring. It's one of those things where a little bit of reading might help us out real quick, too. Electrical, I'll take it. That random switch on the side, that's for the dome light. Handy. Okay. So we're working through it here. I've identified where all the wires go. I'm just trying to figure out the color of the wires now. No, I stands for output. Oh. Now that could be important. Output runs through the ignition switch. And that wire is yellow. Let's check some continuity. That sounds fun. See, one works, one doesn't, but you got to keep both. You never know. Fella never knows. Where's all of my... So the plan's simple. We're going to go to the voltage regulator. We're going to take the connecting harness off, just unhook it, which I think I can actually access on the backside. And then we're going to do continuity checks between the pins and where those are supposed to run, and see if one of these broken wires underneath here has something to do with why the voltage regulator isn't telling the alternator to charge this. The alternator is good, the battery is good, something's happening in between. All right, well, we might as well just start down here with that right there. Look how it shows up great. Nice. Okay. Oh. So I got this set for continuity, to check continuity. Get a tone if it's there. I'm alligator clipped on to where the yellow wire runs to the back of the ignition for the voltage regulator terminal on the ignition switch. And we're going to poke this to the yellow wire in the harness and see if we get a tone. So we do. We've got continuity there. So that wire runs all the way through to where it's supposed to run to. I'm betting that our problem's going to be with the field wire. Or possibly the ground, who knows. Let's see where the field wire is supposed to go. Well, that could do it. It's not attached to anything. Well, there's a 99% chance I just have the alternator hooked up right. This is the field, or where the fielding wire is supposed to go according to the diagram on the alternator, and this is the green wire. We're going to see if that has continuity. We got it ran underneath the machine here with the green wire on the harness. Yeah, it's just been a humbling time. What the heck do I have attached to the field wire then? Who knows? Where should that go? I've been out here mad that this thing's not working, and I've just been trying to run it on hopes and dreams. So it's got this spade connector on it. We're just going to cut that off. Clearly hooked up different on the other alternator. So we're just going to throw one of these on it and go right on that. Looking real good. This has to be like an auxiliary. I mean, this is the heavy cable right here, right? So this red one's got to be some sort of auxiliary. So I've got an option down here for that. I don't know. We've also made another realization. You see this beefy fella here? So it's just tucked up there, but that runs to the back side of my manifold heater. This doesn't have a glow plugs or block heater. It's got a manifold heater, and basically there's a line right here that runs down, and it'll drip diesel fuel in here, and that'll glow up, and a little flame will ignite in here, heating up the manifold. So when you crank on in the wintertime, she pulls warm air into the engine, helps you on the cold starts. And that hasn't been working. We tried to do our own little bypass. That didn't work either. Well, check this out. It's supposed to operate off the back side of this switch here. And look what I found. What I'm believing is the other end of that cable that just was not hooked up and goes somewhere on the back side of the switch. I got to look at the diagram and see which terminal it goes in. But you're supposed to be able to turn that backwards, wait a few seconds, however long you feel necessary, for it to get hot, and then crank it over. Unbelievable. Things that would have taken me 2 minutes 8 months ago. Now we just wanted to jump it 2,700 times. Well, I got a couple different configurations here. We just kind of work our way down until something makes sense. Less thermostat. Wow, we don't need less, we need more. I'm assuming they're calling the manifold heater the thermostat. Okay, so it should be that one there. So if that is the correct terminal, I I should be able to, let's do this real quick just to make sure. Let's alligator clip onto it and switch this to 20 volts. That should be giving power, so we'll hold to ground. And if we turn it backwards, look at that. If we turn it backwards, we get the voltage. Let off of it, nothing. That is the way it's supposed to work. The only catch to that is it's got an inline fuse holder and it only has half of that piece. So I got to order an inline fuse holder. But in theory, we put an inline fuse holder on there to whatever fuse spec it says in the book. We should have a manifold heater this winter. That's pretty wild. I think my favorite part here is we still haven't put the end caps on these cylinders over here yet, and we haven't filled this thing up and tested the hydraulic system for the steering. We're just operating like it's working, you know. We're just being productive and feeling good about life. I'm gonna continuity check the ground real quick and make sure that's good on the harness. When testing ground, if you have a disconnect like mine set up for the ground side of things and you have that turned off, you're not gonna get a ground on anything, you know what I mean? But here we go. Hear it? We're good. What I am gonna do though, these are just spliced together like that. They're just spliced and taped. So I'm gonna cut these staggered. We'll put good heat shrink connectors on them. The wire's good down to here. And we'll get that spliced in a little bit nicer with some new wire and some better protection for it. Here's step one. We got our new wires, heat shrink connectors. Connectors staggered so they lay in the loam real nice. This is what we're using. I'm gonna put a piece of heat shrink. Slide this heat shrink piece over first, because this is what secures that wire protection for us. So I found it easiest if you take this style, you push it together, you get that bunch, and then you work that down the line. If you try to just pull like this, I never had much luck with it. But if you kind of do that technique, you'll slowly work it down. And then the goal is to get it tucked nice and neat inside that heat shrink. And then we heat shrink that down on top of it, and it holds everything good and snug and tight for us. And that's what we end up with, and it locks set. And I did do continuity on all the wires through that first butt connection through the plug. So we know we're good from here to here. Now we gotta make the connection on the tractor end. So that's all wrapped up underneath there. It turned out great. Try to get you a little shot there. That's somewhere. Confident of that. Next thing we're gonna do, let's see if we can get these screws on these end caps. I picked up some better screws, a higher grade screw for those end caps. And then I think we're at a point we can try to fire it up and at least test it, fill the system, bleed it, and see if we're leaking fluid anywhere too crazy. So this is what I picked up. What I tried before was just way too soft of metal. It had flat head screws in it, which are a pain in the butt to get out. So I tried to swap them out for some bolts, but they were just too soft and I sheared them off. The whole point of this cap is it holds this up tight against a lock ring that's on the inside of that. We got lock washers to go on with them. These are the shortest ones they had, and they're a touch longer than the other ones. Hoping they're not too long. And that's bottomed out. Side nut, just go ahead and cut them shorter. Threw a nut on it, trimmed them up, and that way you can run the nut off, clean the threads up. And that should work fine. So we're gonna get this thing fired up. We're gonna check a few things. One, we're gonna hope that all the fluid stays inside. We gotta turn left and right a few times and bleed the system. I say this every time I try to repair something. This is, in my mind, everything works. You know, I could walk away today and be like, yeah, new seals, alternator works, everything's fine. It's fine. But it's this starting up, it's this moment of truth that's truly nerve-wracking. Make sure the alternator is not burning up first. Normally there'd be fluid just puking out of there, but there's nothing right now. Oh, I'm stuck on the fender. It's 12.3 there. So we're getting 12.3 at the battery and at the alternator. I feel like it ought to be a little higher than that. But the battery light is not on anymore, so that's interesting. Well, let's turn some stuff and see if anything comes out. Well, we're not puking out of anything there, so that's good. I don't see anything puking out of that. And there's nothing coming out of that. Or the top side. Well, I say let's shut her down and get everything buttoned back together with the wheel, make sure she feels good with the wheel. So I'll show you out here. There's a pin that goes on the column. We drive that pin back through. This keeper is just like this one here. Goes in that ring and keeps that pin from coming out. Try to get that keeper on there. This bolt goes to that clamp on the bottom. It's possible that that was supposed to go on first. It's real possible that that's supposed to go on before I do any of that. Super possible. Probably the most possible. And basically you just undo that all now that you know it all fits. Question a lot of your life decisions. Pull the whole shaft. I don't know when the microphone died. A new day. We finally got some measurable rain. Let me talk you through the issue in the system real quick, and I'm more talking myself through it. So we got the steering motor in. The issue right now is it's turning itself to the left, just slightly. Now I've only gone left and right a couple times. So the way this works, there are two lines that come in here. Now we haven't disconnected any of this. We pulled these out to change the seals, but none of this has been disconnected. This comes down, goes into a T. One is a supply, one is a return. According to the manual, this is a closed system, which means it doesn't cycle that oil. It just pushes it in one side, and when you run the orbital valve, the steering motor the opposite direction, then the oil then pushes it back. And in order to bleed the system, it says to just turn the wheel left and right to full lock both ways, which we've done I think 3 times now, and it still kind of holds itself to the left. Now, I don't think air in the line is the reason it's turned itself to the left. I think there's something in the steering motor that is off. I do know, after a lot of research before I did this, and even after, since we're having an issue, that some orbital motors do have to be timed. In the manual, all the variations of steering motors that they put in these, none of them say anything about anything having to be timed, anything having to be a specific orientation as far as the discs go, or the metering discs go, or the commutator, any of that. There's certain ways they have to lay, face up or face down, but none of them say anything about any of the orientation. So I didn't do it that way. I just did it the way the manual says. So my gut, I'm pretty positive we're gonna have to take that motor back out, disassemble it, and do some more work to that motor and figure out what the heck's going on with it. But an old mechanic taught me to make sure there's not a mouse nest in the air box before you tear the whole engine down to the block, right? Diagnose the easy things first. So we're gonna turn this wheel back and forth 12 times. Because everything I've found online and all the forums for old tractors and loaders and things like that, then if you got to run it more than 12 times to bleed it out and get it to work right, you got something going on the valve. So let's do that. I did get the front end off the ground just a little bit to make it a little bit easier on the machine, but Now you're going to see a slight leak down here on one of those fittings. That's to be expected because once you fix one leak, it's going to go to the next spot that's weakest, which is probably one of those fittings. We might be able to tighten it up later and take a look at it. But right now, we're more concerned with the whole NASCAR modification we've made. We've turned this thing into a turn left only machine. So I can turn it right with ease. I mean, there's not a problem there. So we're going to go from stop to stop, lock to lock, whatever you want to call it. 1. That turns on its own, right? 2. So one good thing is the wheel does stop when it gets to the end of where it's supposed to be. So in theory, that should mean that we don't have a seal bypassing problem. Because if we had a seal bypassing, the wheel would be able to keep spinning, if I understand that correctly. She sure does love turning to the left on her own, though. Like, I can hold it. It's not effort. Well, I think it's a valve problem. Daggone it. We're going to be a seasoned pro on the disassembly of this thing. Or you just been leaving her charge. I don't have much time today. I don't even know if I got enough time to get this thing out. I'm going to zip the back end off of this thing real quick. See if there's anything obvious, like maybe I put one of the discs upside down. I don't care that it's not working. It's slightly frustrating, but I just want to understand. I want to know why. Why is it not working? I want to understand the part. When someone says, why was it turning left? I want to be able to say, this is why. Not, I don't know, I shipped it off. Washer came with it. Slot side is down. Seal retainer and seal coming together. If you do go to change this seal, just know all you gotta do is that. That's it. New seal on. You're done. All right, so I spent a bunch of time on some forums. I got a hold of Clint. I just been doing a ton of research. And here's the thing, in the manual it says nothing about timing, but everybody online, and Clint agrees, there's got to be some type of timing. Now, Clint said he hadn't done a ton of these orbital valves, but last time he did one, there was a timing aspect to it. Everybody online says if it's not timed correctly, it's going to steer itself. Everybody agrees that that is the issue, it's out of time. But without any timing information in the manual, it's kind of at a loss on how I'm supposed to figure out the direction of this thing. But after looking, I finally did find, even though the manual doesn't say anything about a timing mark, after looking at this metering ring, or the ring that goes around the metering element, there's a part of it, you'll see this mark right here. I don't know why else they'd have a mark other than some sort of timing reference. However, it doesn't say anything about it in the manual, and nowhere on this machine surface is there another mark to reference. Nowhere on the ring or outer edge of this casting is there any type of mark. The only other thing I could find is after looking at several forums, they said that 2 of the valleys, and I've got it sitting on this block so that these little veins don't fall out part of the pump. There's springs in there, and if you take it off, it all just falls apart. 2 of these valleys, like this, have to be in line with the pin on the torsion bar that engages this here, the drive one. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to line that pin up with that timing mark, set that ring on, then we're going to set the metering element on there, and we're going to see if that puts 2 valleys in line with that pin. Hopefully I'm saying all that right, but this is a guess. This is a big guess. If this doesn't work, it's going to a hydraulic shop. I'm only going to, this mark I made right here, that is the pin for the drive link, and in theory that's what we're supposed to line up. Rotate this around. You can see the little veins operating, the springs down inside where they should be. Definitely don't want those poking up. So I got my timing mark here. It is in line with the pin mark that I made here. So we got a straight line going across from my timing mark to that pin. And to further the conspiracy theory, I have a valley from the metering element on either side of the pin, in line with the pin. So we're taking a bunch of things that I think might be right, and they seem to be matching up. So that's an encouraging thing. But we'll get this all put back together. We'll throw it on and we'll see if we're taking it to a shop or not. So we're about to be either really happy or really frustrated. I will tell you, whether she starts or not, even with just cranking last time, the wheel is doing its own thing. So. Well, not great, but I still almost, oh man. At this point, I would challenge anybody to a race on taking these out and putting them back in the machine. Getting pretty quick at it. We got her apart again. Here's my very limited understanding of how this works. Pressure goes in. We turn the wheel. When you turn the wheel, it causes that pin to move. That pin fits in this slot right here. And as you turn the wheel, turns this ring, and you can see with the machined grooves, that then tells fluid where it is supposed to go in relation to where the wheel directs it into some of those ports. You can see the wear pattern from the commutator ring on the inside of this. Nope, right here on the inside of this. That fluid is then directed down into one of these ports, comes out of one of these right here. This sits like this, and then pushes fluid. No, I don't know. I don't know how this works. Like we're really close to understanding this thing, which means we're close to figuring it out. So that would be the left port. So right now, when we blow it in, it comes out the left port. And it shouldn't come out anything. Well, it should come out the return. It should be coming out the return because we're not moving anything. Okay, let's uncap it. Let's just take that metering element, run it a gear, see if that makes a difference. Yeah. So the timing's definitely off. Check this out. Watch what happens. This spins as I blow air in through the pressure. That's why we're automatically turning left. Okay, we're kind of figuring things out. I'm going to do the same thing, except this time, hopefully try not to lose a spring so I can actually tell if I adjusted a tooth or not. And we'll see what it does. We're just going to slide over a... Still doing it. Still doing it. Still just crazy cranking left. Well, the good news is I figured out how to bench test it. So we don't have to mount it every time. The bad news is I still don't understand what's going on, you know. I don't know why it's doing that at all. What else can a fella adjust? And I think I gotta admit defeat. Well, I've officially been defeated by this here orbital valve. We are gonna take it to the shop. We'll let the professionals do it. It was a good attempt though.